I remember that morning clearly, the sun catching the mist rising off the creek, soft and almost magical. It was the kind of light that made you want to stop, breathe deep, just be. But I didn't have time for that. I owned the land now, just about 6 months, and there was work to do. The west bank of the creek had been eroding after spring rains, and if I didn't shore it up, I'd lose valuable ground. That creek, a narrow ribbon of water, wound its way across my property, whispering stories from upstream. The bulldozer I used was an old 1989 Komatsu, slow to warm up and stubborn as hell, but reliable just like me. I climbed up, started it, and felt right at home as the diesel smoke rose. I dropped the blade and began moving earth, careful to stay within the legal flags I'd marked. I was far enough from the water linear on my land, doing my work. Then a white SUV pulled up on the gravel road near my gate. No badges, no city logos, just 3 men stepping out wearing dark polo shirts labeled HOA Compliance Enforcement. At first, I thought they were surveyors, maybe lost, but then one lifted a megaphone and barked, "Operator, shut it down and step away from the equipment." I shut off the engine, climbed down, boots crunching on gravel, tension thick in the air. "You got a permit for that excavation?" the tall guy asked sharply. "This is a protected environmental corridor," said another, pointing at the creek like it was sacred. "You're operating heavy equipment within proximity of a Class C waterway," added the clipboard guy. "That's a violation of the HOA's Environmental Protection Clause." I took a deep breath. I didn't even know the HOA had any say over this part of the property. Any soil disturbance within this zone requires prior approval and an ecological impact review, the clipboard guy said, holding his papers like gospel. I almost laughed. I'd seen this routine before back in the military. They teach you to spot a power grab. The guy with a clipboard who shows up late, hoping no one pushes back. Only this time, it was suburban, with cheap sunglasses and HOA uniforms. "I'm 63 feet from the water line, flagged and measured," I said. "This soil needs stabilization before the next rain. I'm protecting the property, not destroying it." The tall one stepped closer. "We order you to cease operations now. Failure to comply will result in fines and liens." "Under whose authority?" I asked. "We're empowered by the Evergreen Bluffs Homeowners Association," clipboard guy said. "I didn't ask who you work for. I asked whose legal authority you operate under." Silence. "We'll follow up with enforcement paperwork," tall guy said and turned away. I stood there watching dust swirl around their boots. No badge, no city permit, no county call. Just bluff and intimidation. They thought I'd fold. They had no idea who I was. See, I didn't just buy the land, he bought the whole watershed. Not just the creek, but upstream springs, runoff basins, water rights, all quietly from Tom Mills, a 92-year-old rancher done fighting the HOA. They didn't know yet. I climbed back into the bulldozer, not to work, but to sit and think. I've been through enough battles to know sometimes you let the enemy feel strong for a day, because tomorrow the real war begins. Next morning, 2 SUVs idled just past my gate, engines rumbling, windows dark. No honks, no calls, just watching. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, sweatshirt draped, boots off, chill creeping in. I waited. The passenger doors opened. Same 3 men, now with paperwork and a new guy, gray hair slicked back, shirt tucked in tight, and a shiny gold star-shaped badge pinned above HOA Compliance Enforcement. I stepped off the porch, gravel crunching. "Lost on your way to a costume party?" Tall guy didn't laugh. "You're served with a notice of violation under Section 6B of the HOA Code. Excavation within the jurisdictional buffer zone must cease. Failure will result in $1,000 daily fines." Jurisdictional buffer zone? I repeated. "Is that a new invention?" The badge man said, "I'm Chief Compliance Officer Raymond Delaney. Treat this seriously." "Chief of what?" "You're not a cop. That badge is cosplay. We're authorized by the HOA board to enforce compliance. According to the county clerk's office, which I have on speed dial, only certified law enforcement or municipal appointees can issue citations. You neither." Clipboard guy shifted. Tall guy tried to regain control. "You're violating community standards by altering terrain within 25 feet of the creek. What agency defines that?" Section 6B of the HOA Charter. That doesn't override municipal zoning or private property rights. You're a nonprofit with bake sales and a pool budget. Badge guy got louder. You're creating a hostile situation. No, I said calmly. You're trespassing. That word hung heavy. Bullies expect people to back down. Most don't know their rights. But I'm not most. I spent 30 years in the Navy logistics, engineering, environmental operations. I know paperwork and authority. So when these four clowns showed up waving fake authority, I didn't flinch, I got angry. Here's what happens. You turn around, take your citation and fake badge, and leave. Stay off my property and think twice before coming back. Delaney stepped up again. If you continue, the board will escalate to legal arbitration. I grinned. Please do. His eyes flickered. When your lawyer opens that file, he'll find a deed signed 6 months ago naming me sole owner, not just this parcel, but every foot surrounding the creek, upstream and downstream, including the spring feeding it. That includes the footpath your HOA installed without permit, the bench placed last October, and the drainage spot where your maintenance dumped grass clippings since 2019. They blinked. I didn't tell them how I knew that yet. Delaney pulled his badge tight to his chest, like shielding from the truth. You're bluffing. I took a manila envelope from the mailbox. You sure? They turned and walked away, boots crunching louder than needed. Engines roared, and they were gone. I stood, mug in hand, watching the dust settle. This wasn't over. Bullies rarely quit after one failure. They regroup, reframe, try again. But the balance had shifted. Their illusion cracked. And once you see through that, fear fades. That night, I barely slept. Words spun: buffer zone, violation, enforcement. It wasn't just arrogant sight, was the assumption I'd fold. But I'd rolled with worse. Before this, I oversaw water diversion in hostile zones, designed runoff plans after typhoons, filed environmental impact reports used by NATO. They saw a muddy guy with a bulldozer, not the man behind it. I bought the creek because I understood its power. The day after my father died, I drove through Evergreen Bluffs and saw that for sale sign in a patch of cattails. Most would ignore it. I didn't. I walked the land, saw it as a natural drainage basin, a wildlife corridor, and most importantly, control over everything downstream. Whoever owns that watershed holds leverage over irrigation, flow, even HOA greenbelt territory. I bought it quietly from Tom Mills, who was tired of fighting the HOA's constant violations. The board sent letters while he surveyed, parceled, and transferred the entire watershed to me. He called later, "Hope you know what you're doing." I did. I wasn't buying land, he was buying strategy. Back in the present, I sat with the deed, environmental assessments, drone photos, and proof of HOA features built without permits, all on land they didn't own anymore. I had contact zoning officials, reporters, environmental board friends. The next morning, I sent a certified cease and desist to the HOA, listing unauthorized property use, giving them 7 days. No reply. I visited City Hall, updated zoning compliance, Public Works, and the county recorder, dropping a folder outlining unpermitted HOA infrastructure on private watershed land. Later, I ran into Tom's daughter at a cafe. She asked how the land was treating me. Lively, I said with a smile. 3 days later, the HOA sent a notice of hearing accusing me of unauthorized excavation. No mention of a deed I sent, just doubling down. I laid out the deed, survey maps, zoning confirmations. They had no legal standing beyond their own internal rules. HOA boards don't back down. When wrong, they escalate and spin stories. I printed 12 packets of my evidence, mailed them to key players, and contacted my lawyer, city planners, environmental nonprofits, and a reporter. Thursday, I photographed the unauthorized bridge and pesticide runoff. Friday, I showed up early at the HOA clubhouse, calm and collected. The room was half full, board members looking like reality TV judges. Delaney front and center, badge still pinned. I introduced myself as John Weller, homeowner and legal owner of the creek. A murmur ran through the room. When the hearing began, I stood, showed the deed, explained the private sale and records. Delaney shifted uncomfortably. I told them I filed notices with zoning, public works, and media. I warned continued claims of jurisdiction would face legal action. Silence. Then one clap. Then more applause rolled through the room. The board lost control. Delaney said nothing more. The next day, a city memo arrived confirming my ownership and denying HOA authority. A note from a friend. You're right. Don't back down. That quiet vindication settled deep. I pinned the memo to the HOA bulletin board under their cleanup flyer. Posted private property signs along the footpath knit threats. Facts. The HOA's confidence began to crack. Then an email from Kelly Raymond, a pragmatic board member, requested a meeting. I forwarded it to my lawyer and went to the creek to think. I agreed to meet Kelly at a neutral cafe. She admitted the board didn't know the watershed was sold and that Delaney acted without full approval. She offered limited community access if the HOA removed the bridge and acknowledged the property change. I said I'd consider it, not because they deserved it, but because the community did. Days later, an intern delivered a notice suspending HOA claims pending legal review. That afternoon, I saw a new stake on my land marked as an HOA project. I told a reporter, "You wanted to know when something shifted? It just did." 2 days later, the article hit. Creek confiscation, HOA accused of overreach. Neighbors took notice, stopped to thank me. Delaney disappeared. Kelly became the new board face, calling for a community meeting with no threats, just conversation. I showed up with binder and reports. Families, retirees, young couples filled the room. When Kelly opened the floor, I spoke about respect, fairness, and community. Applause broke out. Neighbors moved to open board nominations. No one nominated Delaney. Kelly declined. Someone shouted, "I nominate John Weller." I smiled and said, "If you want someone who fights for fairness and respects rights, I'll do it." I was elected interim president. Delaney resigned quietly. Before leaving, he sent maps of HOA plans for the creek plans on land they never owned. Their long game interrupted. As president, I paused all fines and citations for review. I visited residents fined for petty reasons. I listened. We held a town hall by the Creek Edison lights. Kids playing, laughter without fear. I shared the full story, not for revenge, but a promise. We could be a neighborhood of trust, not fear. The community voted overwhelmingly to create Weller Creek Commons, a privately preserved, publicly loved park. Neighbors helped clear brush, build benches, plant native flowers, and veterans build garden beds. The local paper ran a softer headline. Retired veteran turns HOA dispute into community oasis. Delaney's name faded. Rumors said he moved away. Kelly stayed, evolving the board into a balanced group focused on real concerns. For me, peace came not from victory, but from stewardship. Most mornings I sit by the creek, coffee in hand, listening. When asked why I fought instead of walking away, I say, because I believe in fixing what's mine and making it better for those who come next. The creek runs smooth now, telling a story of quiet justice, respect, and the unstoppable current of change.